Yeah. Let's get this sent out here. And out. Yes. Hello there, Hawkeye fans, and welcome to the Rapid Reaction Podcast here on hawkfanatic.com. It is not rapid. It's a little, it's the next morning, but busy lives here. Jovan's mom's birthday last night, so happy birthday to Jovan's mom. Jordan's got a bunch of stuff going on trying to rebuild his football program in New York. And it was late last night by the time that game ended. 31-0 loss, Iowa at Penn State. If you're on the YouTube, top left is Jovan Johnson, bottom is Jordan Canzeri, former Hawkeyes joining me. And as I like to do, I open the floor up to these guys and let them share their feedback on what they saw last night. We'll start with Jovan.
I mean, I would like to call that a lopsided victory for Penn State. It was ugly, but at the same time, a lot of things to learn from, a lot of mistakes being made, very lackluster on offense, didn't really, move the ball very well. And it's hard as a defensive team to win games when the other team owns the time of possession 45 minutes to almost 15. That makes it a lot harder. But Penn State played well. They converted on fourth down multiple times. They ran the ball effectively, not dominantly, but effectively. They moved the chains. They were able to convert on some throws and things like that. But it was one-sided all the way. I mean, 28 first downs to 4. It's kind of hard to beat anybody. And then when you turn the ball over on special teams, that unfortunate situation of the ball hitting off a kid's back and they recovered in their own end of the field. Things like that, are once in a lifetime. They don't really happen that often, but, Penn State played well, and that's all you can do. You can learn from it and grow from it, but, they need to be better in all three phases. But I thought the special teams really played well. Torrey Taylor played well.
Yeah, Jordan, Penn State ran 97 plays, the second most in the history of the program, I think it was. They ran 99 once, but this was the most since like the 50s or something silly like that. It was just, it's tough to win a ball game when your defense is on the field for that many plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was at halftime. We had 7+ minutes of offense and they were at like 18. So it is when you're going 3 and out and just putting all the pressure on the defense for being on the field for that long a time, it's real hard to be successful on any. Aaron said there's a lot to learn from, but a lot of just unlucky things occurring, especially like already mentioned that punt, that was definitely a lateral where who knows if, the punt just would have been the same, but it's just, it's a lot to go back from because Penn State is a great team. They played phenomenally, but not putting any points up as an offense is just something that is always tough to walk away from.
Jovan, it was, the early fumble by Eric All. Kid was trying to make a play, get some extra yards. It happens, but overall, you can't turn the ball over that much, man. When you're going into a whiteout situation and that early turnover there, it almost seemed like that set the tone.
Yeah, I mean, that turnover was big. You have the ball going into the red zone. You got to be able to hang on to the football. But I think even if we had scored in that possession, I still think the game still goes the same way. They just kind of dominated up front on their defensive line, getting after the quarterback. They didn't give our quarterback enough time at all. He was getting pressured left and right. But it was just a pure dominant game by Penn State. They do a heck of a job in recruiting. They are, having at their stadium is as big as it is, and the way that the games are played there, they get a lot of top-notch guys. But Iowa's always competitive. So at the end of the day, you just got to learn from it, go back to the drawing board, see what things you did wrong, see what you need to fix. But like Jordan said, not being able to put no points on the board, that is probably the biggest hurdle that Iowa has to get over at this point.
First time since 2000, Kirk Ferentz's second year, that Iowa was shut out. That's 23 years ago for those that don't have calendars. Against Illinois, I remember that game, and that team fought and won some tough games. Won at Penn State actually that year, but that was the last time Iowa was shut out. Jordan, Cade doesn't look right. I'm not sure what it is. I know when he ran the ball the one time, obviously his leg is still bothering him. I don't know how much that's affecting his throwing, but he just has not been sharp. The offensive line was leaky again last night. Didn't really open up holes for the running game. What's going on offensively? That's only one game, obviously, against a really good team, but there just was really nothing to take out of that last night.
Yeah, I mean, really nothing. But I would say, as you said, you could definitely tell I think it is his right quad that's still bothering him. And as a right arm quarterback, again, I don't personally know, but that could have a factor. Is that I was even surprised that went a little bit higher. But again, Penn State, they got a great team. That there were concepts where no matter where Cade looked, they had, when man to man, they had dudes in the hip pocket. And that's the thing where, we got good athletes at receiver, but, that's been something not truly, I think, for recruiting as a focus as of late, where, it's just little things where, yeah, we have to just be honest and say that we have to start really looking outside in offense, continue to do what it does and play. Even before, if it wasn't for that punt and it just them already having the ball down, I think it was like the 20-some yard line, it was still only 10-0 game. Like the defense was still playing so well that, again, when you just can't do anything offensively, what do you expect the defense to do? And especially with Penn State breaking records with how many plays they ran, it's again just showing that we have to have something happen where past few years we've been bottom of the barrel offensively, and now we go against a great team and just literally do nothing. It's just sad. I know we have the guys, they're putting everything they can, they're fighting tooth and nail. I know our coaches are, staying as long as they can in meetings to feel like they can put the kids in the best position, but something has to happen because it just hasn't been a great trend offensively.
Jovan, I'm going to throw that at you too. I'm not going to pigeonhole you to only talk about defense. What are you seeing on offense here? I think the conversation, at least in Hawkeye Nation right now, for the fans, and you can put that, you can what's the word I'm looking for? Characterize that however you want, what the fans' opinions are. But it seems like the discussion right now is the scheme old? Can Iowa win with this offensive scheme? Do they have to do some things differently, or is it execution, or is it a little both?
I mean, a lot of people is going to want to point the finger at Brian Ferentz, and I don't think that's the problem. I think that they definitely need to evolve. offensively with the scheme. I think the scheme could be adjusted a little bit more where you're not doing so much of the stretch runs and things like that. You can get into some more exotic formations and movement stuff with the motions and everything like that. But I just think that right now, the tight ends make the offense go, and not having Luke Lachey out there, Eric All's doing all he can. But when you don't have tight ends to your disposal at Iowa, it makes the run game tough. It makes them suffer in the backfield because they help the offensive line mightily. And then when the quarterback's a little banged up and can't maneuver and move how he's used to moving, it makes everything else kind of fall off a little bit. But I think outside of that, the receivers, in my opinion, are what's not allowing this offense to flourish. Because when you have a team that's going to play you in man-to-man and you can't separate, that makes it very hard for any quarterback, any coordinator to do anything offensively when you don't have guys that can separate. And I think of all the great offenses of the Iowa teams that I've been a part of, that I've watched after I've left, they all had guys that can separate. You think about, DJ K, you think about Marvin McNutt, you think about, the Mo Browns and those guys, Clinton Solomon and all of them, Ed Hinkle. Don't
forget the Razor.
Don't forget even Razor Ramon, sure. But when you had those guys that when they got in a one-on-one situation, they were licking their chops because they knew that person across from them was not going to be able to stop them for 4 quarters of getting open. And I mean, I've seen it multiple times, but they need some guys. They have some athletic guys on the outside, but they need some guys that can separate in man-to-man.
You mentioned that too, Jordan. You talked about the receivers in your last comment. Same question to you. Execution, scheme, combination. What do you see here when you see the struggles on offense? What are the causes?
I mean, it's multiple things. It's not great when you don't have one of your best offensive weapons in Johnson out there. But again, with Luke Lachey being out as well, it's just tough. It really is tough when some of your best guys aren't available. But still, got to be able to call plays to put in concepts. Got to be able to block up front, give your QB time. Got to, again, as Jovan said, have receivers that one-on-one can make something happen, can have separation, or can at least just be a guy that if you toss the ball up to them, they'll win most of those 50-50 balls. Because again, we know offensive weapons wise, Ohio State has always recruited, and even in the NFL right now, you can make the argument they're truly wide receiver especially with the 2 guys that they have about to graduate. But if for those that were able to watch the Notre Dame game at the same time, or even see the highlights of, you have a guy like Harrison Jr. who one-on-one, he, as Jovan said, is licking his chops. You have, I forget, but his other receiver, same thing, where they still with a first-year starting quarterback who, at the end of the game, brought the team down and made some good executed throws, but still he has those types of dudes who can do that. So that's the thing where it also makes an offensive coordinator's job easier when you have guys like that. So it's just a lot of things, multiple things. And again, it doesn't help when you go up against a team as talented as Penn State, because we're talking about the week before against Western Michigan, we're scoring the most we've scored since a few years. And then again, we go against a very talented Penn State team. We get shut out the first time since 2000. So it's a lot of different factors, but regardless, it's something that we got to go back to the drawing board on and see what can be changed.
Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any thoughts on, maybe you don't have a complete group of wide receivers that can win those one-on-one battles? Is there a way to maybe get those guys in a better situation if they're not able to do that, or are you stuck?
Me personally, I think the thing with the receivers is if you change the look, then you could kind of manipulate ways to get them open. Like if you motion them, and change the leverage of the defensive back, and then you attack him on his outside shoulder, run the out route, just different ways of going against the ordinary. Like if a guy lines up on the top of the numbers with the ball's in the middle of the field, as a DB, I know he's going to run an inside breaking route. So why not motion him and then bring him back and then still run the same thing? Just kind of manipulating the thought process of the DB, because they're thinking about, where the guy's lined up at and what route combinations could he potentially run. And when you're in man-to-man, that really matters. So you have to be able to do something to try to go against the grain a little bit. Even if you got man and you stack the receivers, now you put them in a difficult situation of how are they going to defend this? Making them think on the fly really starts to kind of mess with the way that they play. So you can't play super aggressive when you have two guys stacked and you're playing man. You got to kind of communicate. Now you got to talk to each other and figure out who's going to do what. And then you can kind of manipulate the leverage of the DB. And then that allows the receivers, whether they're guys that can win in man-to-man or guys that can't, they can win off of being in a better leverage position. So I just think you can manipulate some things offensively to get them going a little bit more.
Well said, Jordan. Your thoughts on that? And then also a lot of 3 tight end sets, even without Lachey, and then running out of those. Does Iowa get sometimes caught in tendencies too much, doing kind of what the defense sees coming? To Jovan's point, does there need to be a little bit more creativity, deception, if you're not able to win one-on-one matchups?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely helps where, again, you create your own leverage rather than just having the base set play and the script from on the line of scrimmage, where, if, again, just going off other teams, when you think about Ohio State versus Alabama crushed them when Devontae Smith, he's a smaller guy, but they would have him in, like, we call it the zipper motion, where he's going all the way across, like it's almost like a jet motion, but then would stop in their tracks and come back. And Kansas City destroyed the Eagles with that 2 separate touchdowns in the Super Bowl. So it's like there definitely is ways that you can help with your matchups. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier to watch and then react on thinking about calling a better play or a different play. But there were some times that I was a little surprised that we were running the ball with certain sets when, again, when you got guys across you like Penn State cats that definitely were winning some of those one-on-one blocks. So, like I said, it's a lot easier to look outside in and judge, but there still was a little bit of surprise on my end. But again, it's just it's tough to say, but in some matchups we're just physically outmatched, where, again, it's just hard to call something against any of that. So, there's still things you can do, just as Jovan said, to create certain leverages and matchups, but and have some more creativity. But again, when it's just you have guys just getting beat from the person across from you, it's hard no matter what.
Yeah, no doubt. Good analysis from both of you guys. Going to take a break here. Want to let folks know that support for the podcast comes from Systems Unlimited, celebrating 50 years, providing services to people living with disabilities and mental health needs throughout East Central Iowa. A list of their services and upcoming events can be found at sui.org. That is sui.org. Systems Unlimited, doing great work in the community. Appreciate the support of the podcast. Take a little break here to hear from a few more sponsors, and we'll be back on the other side. And we are back. Thank you to our sponsors. Jovan, again, we talked about the number of plays the defense was out there for, but I saw some shakiness early in the game, even when they were fresh. Penn State, nice concepts. Quarterback's a stud. kid is going to be good. What did you see defensively? Just it seemed like there were times where they figured out what Iowa was doing in the zone and the quarters and things like that. And to give the kid credit, they tried to make the quarterback to impatient. He was patient and took what the Iowa defense gave.
Yeah, I mean, that's a testament to Penn State and the way they do things and just their overall preparation for the game. I mean, I watched Penn State earlier in the game, and they came out in some exotic formations. They had a formation where they were stacked outside, and they made the nickel move out to the outside. So now they got numbers in the running game, and they ended up running what we call GH counter with the H back and the guard pulling, and they had some very exotic formations. And then Iowa tries to force you into doing things that, you know, are to their benefit defensively. But like you said, the Penn State quarterback was very patient. He was taking, you know, those short intermediate throws that they were giving him. He wasn't trying to force the ball over the top where they got that umbrella coverage of quarters. You know, he was getting into some things that the one touchdown, the first touchdown after they converted on 3 4th and 1s, they got into a formation where they motioned and then they put X and my guy Cooper, they made them communicate. They ended up switching the route, and X ended up taking the route, but he ran an over route to the other end, back pylon of the end zone. So once you get out leveraged on that, it's hard to stop as a safety. So, you know, and that quarterback made a hell of a throw. So it's just things like that, like forcing the team to have to communicate and have to do things that they're not typically used to doing. It kind of gives you a little bit of an advantage. And scheme-wise, Penn State was definitely prepared.
Same to you, Jordan. They ran that short pass, swing pass to the left, had, I think, the tight end out there blocking it, and they'd pick up 5-7 yards to that outside almost every time. It just seemed like Penn State was really disciplined at taking what the Iowa defense gave it.
Yeah, no, they definitely were prepared with their game plan. I think the running back is Allen. He's a great player too. You know, again, they just got athletes across the board. I will say I was, again, as Jovan said, it was tough where X was covering that tight end and the quarterback it was a money ball, couldn't put it anywhere better. But there was that one time where X just came and just straight dive boarded the running back Allen and just stuck him. And it was just that at least was a win of a play for me, where it was just good to see where, again, we do have young, again, defenders that are just going to continue to develop and grow and get better and better every week. But yeah, Penn State definitely knew where to attack us, and they had a good game plan.
It seems like teams are finding ways. I don't know if it's the teams doing it to this point, we're a third of the way into the season, or if Iowa is missing Lucas Van Ness that much, Jovan, but the pass rush just has not been consistent this year. It's now 4 games in and we're hearing things like teams are hitting us with the quick pass game and things like that, but you have to find ways, right, to adjust to that.
Yeah, I mean, when you lose guys like Lucas Van Ness and Jack Campbell and these guys, you know, the middle of the defense, you know, you kind of revamp. I mean, they brought in some great players, some guys in the transfer portal. You bring in some great players, and but defensive line wise, you know, you got to be able to win a 1-on-1. I mean, that's just, it just boils down to who can win a 1-on-1 up front. You know, most of the time, the one technique is going to get the double team, and then the other 3 guys are going to get 1-on-1s. And Penn State thrived on that against Iowa, but on the same sense of that, Iowa has to be able to do a better job in the pass rush department to get after the quarterback. But, I mean, when they're moving guys and doing all these different exotic things in the offensive scheme, it does slow you down a little bit because you don't know which way they're going to attack you from. So, I mean, the Penn State, like I said, they were well prepared. They had a heck of a game plan. I'm pretty sure they've probably been waiting for this moment to be able to unleash their game plan and execute at a high level when they played in the Big Tens, because the other games, didn't really, just kind of prepared them for the moment. But this is their time. They want to try to get to a national championship, and I think right now they're primed and ready. But we'll see how it transpires. They still got some tough games ahead.
No doubt about that. Jordan, wanted to talk about the muffed punt, a huge play, as we've talked about. When you looked at that, it seemed like bad luck, but was it avoidable? Was there something it looked like Cooper was yelling his head off, what's the term you guys use? Fires, whatever it is, to get out of the way. It looked like he was trying, but with 100,000 people, it's probably hard to hear.
Yeah. Again, tough setting, but that punt, it didn't have as much hang time. So like you saw that he was trying to yell something, but again, like that was just a dart at that kid's back where it was hard, and he was doing his job with the double team on that and almost had the gunner out of bounds. So it's just real tough, something hard to avoid. But again, just as I touched on earlier, where at that point, if that didn't happen, it still would have been like a 10-0 game. And I want to still give credit to the defense where, again, if it wasn't for the offense's lack of success, Penn State wouldn't have ran as many plays. Penn State wouldn't have had the time. Had the time to game plan and assess, because again, like I know Phil Parker had certain reads and calls and
relax again
for this offense. So the more that the defense is on the field, the more that the offense and the coaches seeing what the defense is doing to draw stuff up on the sideline to counter it. So it's like, again, when the offense doesn't do anything, so the defense is on the field the whole time, there's obviously times where now the Penn State offense calls something to counteract what the defense has been doing, because beforehand, again, they were still playing very solid. And it's just another tough thing when one side of the ball isn't working, it hurts the other. And the last thing too is, again, it's that just in that same like talking point, it's just something where you got defenders who are tired, you got them just on the field for too long, but also to add what even Jovan mentioned, that this is a team that can definitely kind of make that run. Even the announcers were saying that the coach, other people around the program were saying that this might be the best offensive line Penn State's ever had in recent years. So again, it's just the fact that we were still playing decently well and good with them while just still shows that if we have an offense that can click and go and move, we have a good team still. With losses that we had on defense, they still played well until up to the point again when they're on the field for 80% of the time and having that opportunity
pick it up
them to game plan against them. So it's just tough. It's just tough.
Let's stick with you, Jordan, on this. You and Jovan both have been on Iowa teams that have had tough losses like this. I think about, was it 2004? You guys lost at Michigan, came back and didn't lose again, I don't think. Jordan, you've had teams that bounce back from tough losses. That has to happen here. There's 8 games left in this season. You get Michigan State at night at Kinnick next week. Then you get Purdue coming in for homecoming. Great opportunity these next 2 weeks. How do you flush this one and move on? Jordan.
Yeah, well, I even use it with my kids after a loss. What Coach Farron said for a long time is, you just got to put it in the box. You learn from it, watch film, see what you did wrong, see what you did right. But once Monday comes, you have to just put it in the box and focus on the next game in front of you. Because yes, it was a Big Ten loss, but Penn State is not in our division. So it's something where the West is still in our hands. I just have to learn from it, grow from it, and just continue to keep our eyes full of us, because as I said, our defense is still playing very well for what was put up against them. And our offense we just got to find the ways to click and be effective going forward, because no defense in the land of football can stop a team when they're on the field for 97 plays that much. We're going against a caliber team, I should say. So it's just something, again, offensively, we got to go to the drawing board and focus on what's in front of us. That's it.
Jovan, 8 games left. 5 of them are at Kinnick. I think we would probably be in agreement that this Penn State game is the toughest one on the schedule. So there's opportunity here for this team to bounce back, collect itself, and win a division title.
Yeah, for sure. Like Jordan said, Penn State's on the other side of the bracket. So you have all of your games in the West. And that's going to be the telltale sign of can you make it to the Big Ten championship and be able to maybe play them again. But again, when you have a team of their caliber, Penn State, and their ability to orchestrate and move the ball on offense and have success, and them having one of the top teams in the country, and you have to play them in week 1 of the Big Ten season, like that's tough for anybody. But if you play them in week 8, then it might look different. But for Iowa right now, they have a big opportunity ahead of them going against Michigan State next week at home in front of their Kinnick faithful. So can they bounce back and be able to take it to Michigan State, who's also dealing with their own set of issues? So if we can be able to get a bounce back game against them and then go out and do Purdue, I think that puts you 2-1 in the Big Ten, and that's back where you want to be. So, they have a great chance and opportunity ahead of them. And I think I know that Coach Ferentz and company are going to get those guys ready to play coming up against this Michigan State team. So, they'll be prepared and they'll be ready to go. So I look to see a different outcome come next week.
Yeah, I think it'd be silly to give up on this team right now, because there's a lot of opportunity left here. Toughest game, whiteout on the road, 14 and a half point underdog. I mean, I think it was just the 31-0. That's the one that no points is the one that people are having a hard time getting over. But you win these next 2, then you get the trip to Wisconsin after that at 2-1. And that's where you want to be, right, guys?
Yeah, you know what? One thing people have to understand: people that have never played at Beaver Stadium, they don't understand like how hard it is to go out there and compete, because it's so loud. And when you have everything white around you and you have on white jerseys, you have to be able to communicate with guys on the field by using hand signals. And like the coaches trying to call plays from the sideline, like it's a lot of factors going on when you play in Beaver Stadium in front of 110,000+ people, and the amount of volume that creates with the sound and things like that. Like that's a tough place to play. So it's not easy to go to Beaver Stadium and win. But yeah, the 0 points is the one thing that I think a lot of people are just scratching their head about, because I think we're a better team than that. But again, you play on first week of Big Ten opening, it's hard to play a team like that in their stadium when you're on the road against a very good football team.
Jordan, anything to add?
No, yeah, everything that Jovan said, I agree with, and just focusing on what's in front of them. And, is the one good thing about playing one of the toughest teams right off the rip is when you face that, it also physically can carry with you into the next game, that since they faced one of the best offensive lines in the Big Ten, now they'll be even more prepared to face Michigan State's offensive line. So different things like that. But, I believe in these guys. Their destiny is still right in front of them, and just excited to see what they do versus Michigan State.
No doubt, this coaching staff, the head coach in particular, has a knack for getting teams to develop as the season goes on, and also getting them to bounce back from games like this, as we've seen. So a lot of football season left. I encourage folks to stay engaged and still get a chance. Who knows? As Jovan said, maybe another chance at the Nittany Lions down in Indianapolis in December. That would be nice for everybody, but then they've got their own work to do getting through Michigan and Ohio State. We'll see how that comes out, but the West is definitely winnable. We saw Minnesota lose at Northwestern yesterday. Illinois looks shaky. Wisconsin's the team that looks like it might be picking up right now. So that game in 3 weeks is going to be a heck of a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. But we got two before that, Michigan State and Purdue. Jovan and Jordan will join me after those contests to talk about how the Hawkeyes do. I like their chances in both. Guys, thanks a ton for the insight. We appreciate it as always. Thank you to our sponsors, and we'll